gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the What Now Show. I am joined by Mike, the Beast Boy Davis. He is a professional MMA fighter who he was fighting in the UFC. You can catch his fight coming up on the 20th of January. He has a confirmed bout against Mason Jones, and we wish him the best for it. How are you doing, Mike?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Of
Okay,
course.
so of course, you've got a big fight coming up against Mason Jones. What do you make of him as an opponent, and what are you looking forward going into the fight?
Oh, so as an opponent, I believe that once you get to the UFC or once the UFC looks at you, that you have become a well-rounded, full-fledged fighter. Like you know what you're doing in every aspect of the game. So with Mason Jones being brought straight to the UFC, he skipped the Contender Series or the Ultimate Fighter, everything like that. That means this kid has what they want. So I'm feeling that this is going to be a good fight. Um, I took it a fight back in. I think I said yes in December, and then from there I just didn't do anything really. Just kept training the way I normally train, preparing my body to go through punishment because that's what this is probably going to be, just a all-out war. So I'm just ready for a war.
Right, amazing. So let's walk me through. You had a really dominant fight your last time out against Thomas Gifford. You had that amazing right cross late in the third round, I believe. It was one of the phenomenal performance, yeah, in my own opinion. So when you even if we look back at your record, you've had quite a few finishes. You've had when it came to island fights, you had that Kimura victory. I was watching some of your footage. It was really impressive. So tell me more about you as a fighter when you're approaching many of your fights. Of course, you're well rounded. We see that you have jiu-jitsu. We see you have your striking. When you have to describe yourself to anyone, do you see yourself more as a striker or as a grappler?
I'll I'll probably say I'm more of a grappler to be honest, but that's like the last thing you see because I strike in all my fights. And I don't mind striking. Like I feel very confident on my feet, but I would say I'm probably better at grappling.
Okay,
And that's
so
just crazy because like no one ever sees that, like ever.
yeah, that's the most interesting part about it because like the times you've been out in the UFC, we've only been able to see you striking most of the time, and otherwise when I even looked at your record on topology, you could see that you had a few submission wins and the
Oh,
rest.
as an amateur, that's all I did was grapple.
Yeah.
Because I was so afraid to get hit growing up in the MMA world. So fights would start, I would throw like a jab, and then I would judo toss someone, or I would just take you down against the cage and then submit you. And I had like 6 or 7 submissions as an amateur.
Yeah, amazing. So, let's get into how the training camp was coming up to this fight, right? So, walk me through when you got like the fight contract for this particular fight and how you scheduled your training camp throughout, like, the whole COVID situation, setting up camp, because I'm fairly sure you've had to take some measures and everything. How's it been different from how you've been training these last few years?
Um, Actually, I got the contract like the 20th of December, so a month ago,
Okay.
and I believe I said yes, maybe like a week prior to that, maybe a week and a half prior to that.
Right.
But my gym, my American Top Team, the headquarters is open to the high level pros. We can come in there. We get scanned for a temperature, make sure we're good, and then we can train together. So like me, Dustin, uh, Moicano, all the PFL champs, all the UFC fighters, we're all in there. So it's hasn't really changed. I mean, I still got all high level training.
Right.
Uh,
So, when it comes to the training for this fight, of course, Mason in his own right has quite an impressive record of his own. I think he's 10-0 right now. He's an undefeated fighter, which means that of course no one's ever been able to get past him, and most of his fights we've seen mostly his striking. So when you assess him as an opponent, and we see that no one's been able to crack a hole into his game before, pick out a flaw and take a gnaw at it. How do you see yourself, attacking Mason Jones as an opponent?
I'm just going in there, doing what I do is best. I don't really see any 155er or 145er because I'm originally a 45er, and
Mhm.
I'm definitely gonna go back to 145 once this COVID thing stops and I get saunas back so I can cut. But uh, I just don't see him keeping up with me. I'm too fast. I have good cardio. I run all the time. I train 100%, 10-minute grappling rounds all the time. It's just it's a pressure. It's a pace that I don't feel like he can keep up with.
So when you're going into any of your fights, do you have a particular game plan that you want to do this in the first round or the second round, or do you just go with the flow?
I feel like every fighter is different. Some fighters come out and they're starting 100%, giving everything they have in the very first round. I'm more of a like an analyst. So the first round is I study how you move, how your feet move, how quick you are, what punches you throw the most. Um, did you try to take me all kinds of like? Did you try to shoot on me? What is your game plan based on how you're acting? And then the second round, I come out after talking to my coaches in the corner about all of it, and then work out a game plan really quick, very 30-second
Right.
game plan where I take advantage. And normally, I finish my fights in the first round though, because I'm not. Again, I'm very good at counter striking. So whenever they start to get a flow going, I interrupt it, and then when they
Yeah,
get
you could.
interrupted, they don't know what to do,
Yeah, because you could
and I just
definitely see
win.
that on
I
the
just
Gifford
happen.
fight. Because every time he was like in the first round, you were moving around the cage quite frequently, and I noticed how every time he was going after the strike, you like the first time if you ate it, the next time he threw it, you were able to move around it, work around it, and then beat him to his own move. So yeah, I could tell how you were continuously adjusting to it. And now that you mention it, making these 30-second game plans, I wasn't able to hear much of your corner corner because of the
Yeah.
commentary. But now that you mention it, it makes quite a bit of sense. So walk me through now the whole lead up during this whole pandemic situation, coming into Fight Island, dealing with the COVID measures that the UFC's taken. So what do you make of this entire situation, the whole Fight Island business? What do you think about it?
Well, when I first got to Abu Dhabi, there's a lot of people taking precautionary measures here. There's like everyone in this hotel, incredible, this is the best hotel I've ever been to. But everyone in this hotel is in like a hazmat suit. So like they're taking the precautions serious. So for the fighters to come here and then we get checked, we're quarantined in a room. Literally, we cannot leave this room. So we're quarantined here for 48 hours after we get to the building. I still have 12 hours ago. So uh, we are tested twice, once a day. Then, as long as we come out negative, we're then free the following day to roam the hotel, which we have the gym here, so we can go run on the treadmill, burn calories, and then we have a restaurant. And I think that's really all we have here. Um,
Right.
but because they're so strict, like you can't leave this room, you can't walk around, you can't do any of this, and they're like literally walking the hallways making sure nobody's doing anything. I feel like coming here for the fights is very safe during COVID, especially because if
Right.
you test positive, you're on the next flight out. So
Yeah,
I
that
feel
makes
like this is
sense.
very safe place to be, and how they did this whole thing was very good. And now they have the new arena, which this three line card here, the triple header is going to be the first event at this new arena.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Have you so you got 12 hours to go, and you mentioned that you're allowed to move around. So are you being able to meet your coaching staff, your training partners, or are you still stuck in your hotel room?
I'm stuck in my hotel room.
Okay, so
Normally, we do have our coaches with us, but I didn't really. want to have anybody with me.
Okay.
Only I like
Right.
the freedom. But on, like I said, tomorrow I'm free. I'll meet up with Dustin and Mike Brown, and we'll probably go like run, hang out, chill, talk, game
Yeah.
plan. If so, I still have 6 days, so
Yeah.
there's plenty of time.
Yeah. Plenty of time indeed. So when you're when you talk about the nerves coming into fight week, do you ever feel like a pre-fight bit of nervousness or any bit of any kind of nerves before lead up to the fight, or are you just in the zone?
It's kind of not nerves. It's just like I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like you're about to get ready to spar, but the person you're sparring is the best in the gym. That's how it feels.
Ah, okay. Okay,
So
so
it's
a little
not
bit
it's
of
not it's not
rectangle.
scary. It's not scary, but the feeling that you're about to you're gonna have to fight is it's different.
Right. So, when it so let's go back, rewind, little bit more to get, because I don't think from any of your previous interactions in the media I've been able to find it. So I want to go ahead and ask you myself. Uh, i- a little bit more into the background of you as a fighter, right? So how did you first, get interested in MMA in the first place? Was it always, your original plan? How did you get directed into MMA? How did you think that, I want to do this full time? Um, what was that whole process like?
Um, well, I started in high school. I got picked on a lot, so I was looking for an outlet, a way to defend myself. And boxing is always a good thing to do, so you always start boxing. I went to my the closest boxing gym, which is Custom Autos, which is also like home of Mike Tyson and Floyd Patterson.
Yeah.
Those people. So I was able to ride my bicycle 14 miles over there, talk to Kevin Rooney, and Kevin Rooney um, kind of like gave into my story and trained me for free. So that
Mm,
was good. So every day after school, I would go over there, and then I started wrestling on the wrestling team in high school, and I went 27-3 my first year. So I was just stronger than everybody when I started wrestling. So it was amazing in my weight class anyway. And I was like, wow, I'm pretty good at wrestling. So I just kept wrestling and wrestling. And then 3 days a week, I believe it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would wrestle Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I would do boxing. And Sundays, I would do like intense runs or bike rides or so with my friends. So I dedicated my life after that point to just training and being in shape, being strong. And my mother's coworkers, they said that they have a facility, it's like a warehouse where they do something called MMA. I didn't know what it was. I didn't pay attention to MMA at all. So I go there and it's her coworkers, like normal Joe Smo people, uh, watching YouTube videos on how to do arm bars and triangles and pass guard. And then we would all just try it on each other. And I loved it because we would do like punches and then I would take you down. And I loved the boxing and the wrestling at the same time. So I kept doing it and I liked it a lot. So then, maybe like 3 months in, they scheduled me a title fight without even really asking. They just said he's good enough to do it and put me in there. And I went, fought that. I was super nervous. Um, I was like shaking a little. It was a weird feeling. When I got to the cage, it was the first time I saw the guy, and he was just as big and strong as me. He looked just like me. I was like, oh my God. Okay. So we took that fight. I won by very, very split decision. And
okay.
ever since I got that feeling, it felt great. So I kept taking fights, but I never really wanted to keep fighting. I just kept doing it because I kept winning. And I was gonna say, like, if I lost my second fight, I probably wouldn't be fighting it right now. But I won. I won 20, like 5 or 4 fights in a row,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I turned pro. And when I turned pro, I won 5 fights in a row. And after that, I was like, dang, maybe I can do this. So I took it serious and then got made it here like 3 fights later.
Yeah, it's crazy, because um, it must have been interesting, getting into the ring that way. I mean, it's a pretty unique story, compared to like the others that you've heard. It's a pretty interesting story to hear. So let's get into how you got the call for the UFC itself. How did you, get the call? What was it like getting the call to the Contender Series?
Oh,
Um, and that whole process.
so I was fighting for Island Fights, which is a regional promotion,
Yeah.
kind of like Cage Warriors, pretty much exactly like Cage Warriors. And taking fights on there, I went undefeated for them, still undefeated for them. And who after I had 3 fights under their banner, the UFC called me for a title fight. Or no, I'm the contender fight. I'm sorry. Uh, and I don't look at my opponents. I really don't. I know that my skill set is top of the line. I train with the best people. I have good boxing coaches. I'm just there. So I just took the fight. Didn't know who he was. Didn't look him up. Didn't do anything. And just showed up for the contender series and fought. And it was the best contender series fight ever. Still, according to people, not saying any facts, but according to people. And I lost that fight, but it taught me because I talked to his coach, Lloyd Irving, afterwards, and they were explaining how I was undefeated. I was like 24 fights in a row and without a loss, and they were trying to figure out how they can get past me. So they looked into my game, saw that I was a boxer, and tried to find out my weaknesses, and they capitalized on anything that I had or anything that they could, and came out with a decision victory. So that was my first loss. And after that, I learned that I need to one fix my fighting stance because I'm not a boxer anymore. So I went to Thailand for 2 months, learned how to fix my stance, how to do good movement. Really taught me a lot of discipline. Then I came back. I'm sorry, I didn't leave the. This was after I took a fight after Island fights
Okay.
against Elvin Brito for the title at 155. I won that. Then I fought the Mexicans national champion for Muay Thai, won that. Then the UFC just called me short notice, like 3 weeks after that fight, to give me a fight against Gilbert Burns, who, once again, I don't know who he is. I didn't know who he was. Um, but everyone was like, that's the hardest entry fight you could ever get. But they're right because Gilbert Burns is like the number one. Once I feel like he'll beat Usman next month. So that was a interesting fight to have going into the UFC.
Hmm.
But it did teach me a lot. It taught me that the 155 weight class is monstrous because if he can make 155, that is crazy. That man is like 200 pounds, two plus.
Yeah.
So yeah, when he grabbed onto me, I was like, dang, he's big. And then I did show a little bit of my grappling there because he's again a 4-time world champion in jiu-jitsu, and I got up on him twice and blocked his takedowns. Not stuff's 2 of his takedowns. One of his
Yeah.
takedowns, he was just swinging me around, and I couldn't. But yeah, that's how I stayed. And then after that fight, when I had the money, that's when I went to Thailand. It was
Right.
May of 2019. I went to Thailand for the summer.
So how did you develop? We've heard about a lot of fighters, who go to Thailand. They've spoken a lot about how they went to Thailand. They developed their game. So when you went to Thailand, what were the main? You spoke about your stance, but how did you? What was the whole process like developing your game as as a striker? Your stance, like all of your techniques revolving around them.
In Thailand,
Yeah.
I talked specifically with the coaches about troubles that I was having. Again, while I was there, we were doing the tryout, so I had to go through that too. But I wanted specific work on. on defense, on proper techniques to block kicks, on proper techniques to check kicks, where to place my feet when I want to move, if I want to be less stable or have stronger punches. So I was just going over it with the coaches there, and they were very helpful, especially because I was in the UFC at the time, right after my Gilbert Burns fight. So they were just honored to help me, and I was honored to receive their help. And I'm definitely going back. I need to go back and take a little more knowledge because I feel like you can always learn from there. Their life, live, breathe, sleep, and Muay Thai. Literally just striking.
So what was it like jumping into American Top Team from there? How'd you get into American Top Team in the first place? What's that whole scene like?
Um, I got invited in September of 2019 after no August, like mid August 2019, after my trip to Thailand. So I got invited to come down and help Dustin get ready for his fight against Habib.
Ah, okay.
And when I got down here, we were just sparring all the time, and they saw how good I was, and they're like, "Damn!" So I got a lot of attention, and because I was getting attention, and they were putting me in with the best people, and I was getting like gassed out because I wasn't used to training that hard with that kind of people, and then I figured like this is what I need since I'm in the UFC now. I need this kind of talent around me 24/7, people that do this for a living just like I want to do it. So I moved down. I packed all my stuff and moved down here, down to South Florida.
So, of course, there's a lot of, as you mentioned, there's a lot of talent down there at American Top Team. You know, you mentioned Dustin being one of them. So, what was it like getting you moved down there? What was it like getting acclimatized with the whole new coaching dynamic, the different talents that were there? You know, mixing with the fighters because I'm sure you would have spent a lot of time there. So, what was getting used to the whole system there?
It took, honestly, like 3 months for me to be able to keep up with everyone, as they're all high level UFC champions, PFL, Risen, ONE FC, and their pace, their grappling is explosive constantly. They're striking, they're always constantly attacking you. And when I was training up north in like Orlando, I wasn't used to that because I was always the better fighter. I was always the one that determine the pace or was the better grappler, so I didn't have to exert so much energy. But when I came down, every day was a fight, man. Every day was multiple fights. So it was just took 3 months for my body to adjust to just to get used to the cardio push. So I was able to hang and do all the rounds.
Was there any person in particular who pushed you to your limit that way?
Moicano.
Okay.
Anato Moicano is probably one of the best grapplers I've ever seen. He's so good on the ground. And it's just crazy. He's so good. So, and I feel like when I always ask to go with him, my goal is to gain dominant positions and
Mhm.
not tap, which I have advanced in because the first time I went with him, we did a 5 minute round and he tapped me like 10 times, 10, maybe 12 times. Now he doesn't tap me. He doesn't tap me at all. And I can get dominant positions on him. I can't hold him for very long, but I can get dominant mount, side control, like these dominant
Mhm.
controlling positions where I'm the attacker, the aggressor. But it's crazy. He's just so good.
Amazing. So it shows that you were able to develop as well as you could as with your own talents by training with people like Renato. So of course you're out there in Fight Island. You have of course Dustin with you over there. He's got his big fight against Connor. So what do you make of that matchup? Of course, it's a second fight. There's a lot of nerves behind it, a lot of hype. Of course, you've been there behind the training camps and with him in the trenches. So when you've been training with him since the Habib fight, he even had that amazing fight of the year performance, in my opinion, with Dan
I
Hooker.
thought it was part of the year. That
Yeah,
was
I
amazing.
I thought that was fight of the year too. So you had Dustin, have these insane fights. You saw him fight Max Holloway, and for that second time. And after going through all of that, what do you make of how he's developed as a fighter leading up to this second fight? What if you guys done differently in his training camp to gear up for McGregor?
He's he's bigger. He's definitely bigger now, and he's shown a lot of improvement in stamina and like toughness. He's a lot tougher. He's harder to hit. He can take harder punches just because of the increase in size. So I saw a statement saying Connor plans to finish him within the 60 seconds, but I just feel like he's a little better than that now. He's a lot better than that now.
Mhm.
And I feel like what he likes to do is drag people into deep water because he doesn't get tired. He just doesn't. So I think I feel like he'll drag Connor into the championship rounds where Connor will um, start to fatigue and then he'll just take over. He will take over the last two rounds.
Very interesting. Yeah, we've seen a lot of durability. I mean, now that you mention it, it is true that you've seen a lot of durability from Dustin in his last few fights. Of course, that Dan Hooker fight. I mean, that second round, I think that was the fight of the year. But I think when it came to that round, that second round, it was probably the round of the year. They're just going at each other.
Yeah.
Forget blocking, forget moving side to side. They just went at each other blow for blow. It was probably the most intense round I've ever seen, and what's crazy about it was, in that first round itself, he got kicked in the nuts like twice or thrice. And then, because what I've noticed, like even in your fights, a lot of these guys from American Top Team, you've been able to calm your nerves a lot during the fight. I mean, case in point with Dustin, you saw him say, you saw him listening to the dynamic of the commentators in the background, Bisbing commenting on it, and him saying, "Listen to Bisbing," to Dan Hooker. It's a very interesting new dynamic. So when you're around Fight Island and you've been seeing this whole new system, what do you think? Do you think that this whole new system with no crowd, this whole system with where you're able to hear the commentators, you're able to hear your corner even better, do you think that it's a bit of an advantage for you there, or it's a bit more nerve wracking because it's a lot more, tensions are a lot higher with everyone screaming at the top of their lungs telling you what to do, instructions here and there? What's that whole system like to you?
I feel like the less crowd makes it easier. Not necessarily easier because you're fighting, but like I can hear your corner screaming, "Do this, do that," and I'm like, oh, so he's planning on doing this, so I'll be ready for that, and so and vice versa too. But it's easy, also easier to hear my corner over the screaming, and then you can't hear the commentators still, even when there's no crowd. Because I fought in the Contender Series with no crowd, and
Okay.
you can't hear them. I can only hear my coach and your coach. That's pretty much it.
Right. I mean, it's a pretty interesting new dynamic, and I was wondering what you would think about that. And, leading up to the whole system, coming back to the whole COVID measures and all of these situations, getting acclimatized with the hotel and this new environment, what's that whole process been like, with the new diet? Because the UFC has been releasing more and more, videos about how they're setting up with the chefs and the whole system behind the diet. So, what do you make of all of that, the environment you're in right now?
It's nice because we show up here, we get a little bag, which right there you can see a little piece of it.
Yeah,
We get
thanks.
a little bag that's full of meals that we'll eat for the quarantine days, and we put them in the fridge, or we can call down to the chef and have specific something made for us, and they it's very nice because normally without COVID, we're showing up with bags and bags of food and weight cutting supplies and all of this, and sometimes we overdo it or we don't know if we're supposed to eat that. But because they have all of our records down at the PI, they control our portion intake and what we need specifically to our person. So it's very efficient way to help us maintain the weight cuts. especially since there's no saunas anymore. Just
Yeah.
portable little box you get.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So, moving on to, of course, the fight, right? Um, where do you see, you going? Ideally, imagining that you make it out of the fight, with the victory. Where do you see, the rest of the pathway from here? I mean, I don't want you to be overlooking Mason, of course, but where do you see yourself boosting up from here? Because, of course, he's an undefeated fighter and all of that. So where do you see yourself going from here?
Um, I need to take some time for personal reasons.
Okay.
I might take the a few months, maybe February, March, maybe some of April to go and do something, get some things done. But then on my way back, I want to progressively start my climb up the ladder.
Right. So are we talking, a top 15 opponent or, more through the other guys and then up the ranks?
If I fought a top 15 opponent right now, I would still get paid like a bottom feed fighter. So there's no benefit to me unless I win. But still, I'll accept that fight and sign that contract for bottom feed money. I'll
Okay.
I'll win that fight, and the next fight I'll get a slight boost, but it's still nothing like what I should be getting paid for being in the top 15.
Okay.
So for me, it's a ladder. I'm not trying to uh, beat this guy, then fight top 15, then fight top 10. No, I would nice climb up the ladder, make sure every paycheck I have is split, dedicated to my family, split up, saved correctly, and all the way up so I can make this a career and not just get hard fights back to back and potentially, I mean that's a big risk because you know how UFC is very they're cutting a lot of people right now. So like
Yeah.
two losses in a row and you're pretty much gone.
Yeah. So when you're assessing all of this together, you've got two different types of people on the spectrum, right? You've got people trying to fight as frequently as possible for as many paychecks or as many wins and trying to boost their payment. You've got Kevin Holland is the best example for it, and
Yeah.
then there's another group of fighters, including I think yourself, from what you're saying, that you like to take your time, go up the ladder, figure out what's what. So when you're assessing all of these fights, do you try to, assess it on the basis of what the check looks like, or do you assess it on the basis of, what the ideal fighting, let's call it a season would be like for you, when you would like to fight whenever, or where? How do you schedule all of this?
Um Based on like health pretty much because you can only fight if you're healthy. And
Right.
um I don't know. Most of the time you say you're ready to fight, your management will find fighters and then you're good to go. You just send you a name, you'll say yes or no, and then you go on. Most of the time, you're always going to say yes because it's the UFC. If you say no, then they kind of overlook you the next time.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
uh,
so I want to look back at what you brought up a little earlier about, being picked on at school, how that helped you, build up a little bit more of a drive for combat sports, right? So, on your way developing that, do you think that, that whole experience was able to, develop your game as a fighter, in the sense that, being able to dealing with pressure, dealing with, how to move forward from after facing like a loss, or
yeah,
do you see that experience as something that'll help you give back in some sort of way, or give back to yourself? Like, what did you make of that entire experience?
probably to give back to myself. I definitely learned that what I'm capable of. I learned how to kind of split the good and the bad out of being bullied, um, out of being put in positions that you're uncomfortable with. So, I mean, like, there's never a panicky feeling or a loss doesn't deter me from anything. It just kind of lets me know that I can be better. There's some things I can improve on. And then when I get back to the gym, I specifically work on those things. So next time I get in there, I don't have those weaknesses again.
Right. So on that note, I think that's all I have for you. So before we wrap up and get this all said and done with the outro and all of that nonsense, I'll leave the last few minutes to you. Anything else you want to say? Anything you want to direct to all the Beast Boy fans out there? Last few minutes, all you, brother. Whatever you want to say.
I got nothing. Um, just a thank you for the opportunity to be here. Honest, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to be brought literally across the entire planet to do what I do best. And I mean, without my fans, without the people who support me, this really wouldn't be possible. So definitely a huge thanks to everybody.
Right.
Uh,
So once again, thank you so much for joining in, Mike. It was a pleasure having you. For all of you watching, it was a thank you for joining in. Catch Mike us on January the 20th on the Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier card. He's going to be fighting Mason Jones. Mike, you have my best of luck. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be rooting for you, and I'm sure those who watch this interview will be too. So yeah, best of luck on the fight. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. That was.